Chapter 1. Izuka, sweetie, will you take out the trash? Inko asked as she saw her son walking down the hall. Izuku looked up from his phone. Sure, Mom, he replied as he walking into the kitchen to get the trash bag. He stepped out into the crisp winter air and headed down the stairs of the apartment building they were living in and around the back of the building, when a bright flash of light flew overhead. Approximately 7 weeks ago, Earth time. Run, our defenses have fallen, and the colony ship won't last but a few moments, Galfor shouted to the princess. Coriandar in fear pleaded for her Norfka to take the escape pod with her. No, princess, Galfor shook his head. I have to provide covering fire, so the Citadel do not know where to follow. He pushed the young lady towards the door. I only wish things had been different, youngling, he said as pod sealed and ejected. With tears streaking her face, the pod activated and put Princess Coriandar into cryostasis. Weeks later, her pod bleeped, indicating a hospitable planet for her species. The blue orb hung in the sky, speckled by verdant green land. The pod slipped into the atmosphere and angled into a densely populated area. Izuku ducked when the object flashed over the skyline and crashed into a nearby area. Normal instincts in a person would tell them to run away. Izuku, however, after years of being put down for being weak and quirkless, led him to not react to dangerous situations in the normal way. He quickly ran over to where he saw the object land and peeked around the corner. In a steaming crater was a large metal cylinder. Izuku nervously searched his surroundings as he slid into the hole. He came up to the container and saw a big blinking button. He tentatively reached out and pushed it. With a hiss of air, a panel popped open and a gorgeous orange-skinned teenage girl fell out. Izuku stood frozen as she blinked awake. Her stunning emerald eyes looked up at him. Hello, I am Coriandar. Do you know what planet I am on? She asked as she looked at the person standing over her. Izuku was even more confused as the girl started speaking to him, yet it sounded like no language he had ever heard. He wasn't a linguist, but he was pretty sure most humans weren't capable of making those noises. He swallowed before attempting to communicate. I'm Izuku Midoriya, do you, speak Japanese maybe? Princess Coriandar laughed for a moment as she realized that of course this species would not know her language. The colony ship was already in an uncharted rim of space when her people fled the Citadel attacking Tamarin. So she floated off the ground, shocking the green-haired boy, and connected their lips so she could learn his language. Izuku froze in some emotion as the girl began to kiss him deeply. His mind blanked as he felt her lips on his own. After a moment, the girl stepped away. There, that is much better. I am Princess Coriandar of Tamarin. What world am I on? Izuku nodded his head before he collapsed on the ground. Awakening a few moments later, Izuku looked up at the sky, or would have if his view wasn't obstructed by an orange girl's face. Hello, I am Princess Coriandar of Tamarin. What world am I on? Earth, Izuku dumbly answered as he blinked at the impassive face staring down at him. What a strange name for a planet. To call it something as banal as dirt, Coriandar questioned as she stood up. Izuku watched the muscles in her core stretch through the opening in her purple leotard as she took in her surroundings. Earthling, your face is turning very red. Are you unwell? She asked as she looked back to Izuku. Eep, Izuku squeaked as he quickly stood up. I'm sorry, I just Tamarin princess. What? He questioned. Yes, I am from the planet Tamarin, Coriandar answered. I am its princess and next in line for the throne, or I would have been if my people had not been attacked and forced to flee from the Citadel. Oh wow, an alien, Izuku muttered as he paced. Or just a crazy girl with a quirk, a really cute crazy girl but still. Oh, who should I call? The cops, the government, a hero. Izuku sped up speaking in his walking speed. Coriandar swiveled her head back and forth to watch this strange earthling. I am sorry, but I do not have time to watch your native dances, she said as she floated off the ground. I must see to finding a way to contact my people, she told Izuku as she flew off through the sky. Izuku watched as the girl left him in the crater. So wow, he muttered before he heard a hissing sound behind him. He jumped and noticed the pod was closing its door and locked. I should probably do something about this, Izuku sighed as he planned a way to get the pod out of the hole in the ground and somewhere people wouldn't find it. For a few hours, Princess Coriandar flew across the cityscape. So many lights and so many people, she said. Someone must have an intergalactic scanner, she hoped as she landed near by a crowd of people. The strange forms and shapes they had indicated to her this was a hub world with many passing species, but she could not recognize a single one. "Excuse me," she said politely as she tapped a very tall lizard-looking man on the shoulder. The lizard man, with a bandana on his face, turned towards the person who was trying to get his attention. "Do you know where I may find a multiphasic ionizing transcommunication array?" The man blinked one eye and then the other. "A what?" he asked again. "Standard intergalactic radio beacon?" She changed her request to a more basic form of communication. "Look, if this is some kind of prank, then I don't get it," he said again as he started to get annoyed. Huffing, Princess Coriandar took off and flew over a few buildings looking for another group of people. Before she could get very far, something grabbed her out of the air. Thick wooden branches pulled her down towards the ground. "Whoa, where's the fire?" Kimui Woods asked. "Fire? I was unaware there was a fire I needed to go to," Coriandar replied. "Kimui Woods, you don't look familiar. What's your name?" "I am Princess Coriandar of Tamarin. Are you able to help me?" she asked nicely, even though she really did not enjoy being tied up like this. "Never heard of a Princess Coriandar or Tamarin, and you look a little young to be using your quirk without a license. But since I'm a hero, I'll do what I can to help," Kimui shrugged as he released the teen. "Good. I am looking for a way to communicate with my people. They were displaced when the Citadel attacked our home planet and drove us out," Coriandar said happily, that someone would be able to help her finally. Kamui took a moment before he sighed. "Look, take your prank somewhere else, kid. I have work to do, and don't let me catch you using your quirk without a license, or I'll bust you next time." He extended out his arms as he swung away. Princess Coriandar fumed at how she was offhandedly dismissed. "This planet is so incredibly rude," she shouted as she stormed off. "I am not one who plays pranks. I need to see if my people are safe and alive." Izuku had managed to get the object home without much fuss. Despite its size, it was surprisingly light, and after getting it out of the crater, he was able to roll it along the road to the back of his apartment. He entered and wiped his brow. "You were gone a while, sweetie," Inko said worriedly. "Did something happen?" "Sort of, yes. No, I met a girl," Izu guessed. Inko gasped before smiling at her son. "Oh, tell me everything. My baby's growing up." "Well, she's kind of tall, can fly, and has orange skin," Izuku described her. Inko smirked and pointed out the window. "Imchim, just like that girl floating outside." "Izuku, you didn't have to try to butter me up before you brought her home. Let her in." Izuku looked in terror out the window as he was pretty sure the girl hadn't followed him home, yet she found him all the same. "Princess Coriandar," Izuku shouted as he threw open the door, startling her. "What are you doing here?" he quietly hissed as he tried to get an explanation from her before his mother invited her inside. Life conspired against him as she did just that. "Oh dear, please don't stand in the walkway. Come in, come in." Inko bustled to push Princess Coriandar into her home. After a few minutes of getting to know Izuku's new girlfriend, Inko managed to step away from the table and take Izuku with her deeper into the apartment. "Sweetie," she said as she pinched her brow, "what did you do?" Izuku shrugged. "I don't really know, Mom," he replied honestly. Inko shook her head. "So what do we do?" she asked. "Should we keep her?" He raised his arms in defeat. "She not a pet," Inko said. "I don't think. There should be someone we can point her to," she concluded. "She said her species was attacked and chased off their home planet," Izuku pointed out. "I think this goes way beyond what anyone can handle." "We should call someone," Inko suggested. Izuku threw his hands up. "Who? We don't know anyone, and I don't really feel comfortable calling some faceless government agent who might think it's better to quiet this up. Give me a few days to figure something out," Izuku requested. Inko thought for a moment before giving up in frustration. "Fine, but she'll need a place to stay." And after convincing Princess Coriandar that remaining with the Midoriyas was the best option while they figured out a plan, this decision drastically altered the fate of the planet. A few weeks later, "Midoriya, I do not understand it," she huffed as her cheeks puffed out in anger. This Kaken is hurting you, and he wants to be a hero? She questioned. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, it's complicated. And the teachers and other students, they are also complicated. Coriandar followed up with another question. I don't know. Izuku shrugged as he walked alongside the Tamaranian princess. That is not right. The Wood of Kamuri has told me using my quirk is illegal without a license. Do humans get licenses this early in their development? She continued probing. No, you have to go to a hero school to get licensed, like Yue or Shiketsu, Izuku answered. So they're breaking the law when they do that, he admitted. It seems most unfair, even more so as you do not have the quirk to fight back with. That is most dishonorable, she concluded. Izuku just nodded as the pair went under an overpass. He liked his time with Princess Coriandar. After some finagling, Izuku and Inko were able to get her enrolled into the same school with Izuku, and she had been placed into his class, and for the first time in almost a decade, he had a friend once more. He had worried that once the other students got a hold of her, she'd be horrified at associating with him. But to his and everyone else's surprise, she had instead firmly grabbed hold of his arm and told off the class. This Izuku Midoriya is mine. I do not like those who are being mean to him. He is very kind. So please be nice to him from now on. Coriandar warned them off. A few of the students snickered at how some random foreigner was coming to the quirkless loser's defense, but she didn't back down and felt it wasn't worth the effort to bother him after that. Oh, look, a skin suit and a snack, a voice warbled from behind them. Izuku and Coriandar turned around to see a looming body of gelatinous slime. Everything then happened in seconds as the slime man lunged at Coriandar. Izuku dove forward, pushing her out of the way. Princess Coriandar froze for a second, watching as yet another person sacrificed themselves for her. She had been willing not to use her powers as required by the Earth laws, as she represented her people and didn't want to reflect poorly on them. But now someone was being hurt. She chose to act instead. With a cry of anger, she charged up energy bolts in her hands and flung them into the slime, where they sizzled and burned on impact. Oh God! It hurts! The slime man squealed in pain as he reeled back from the assault. In doing so, he released Izuku, who fell to the ground in a pile, taking in big gulps of air. Do not be hurting the innocents, Coriandar shouted as she placed her hands together and fired a singular beam which punched a hole straight through the villain. Most impressive, All Might said proudly. But let me take it from here, he said as appearing in front of the teens. It is my job and all that. Delaware smash. The battle cry was drowned out as the slime exploded into small globs. All Might spent the next few moments collecting the villain while Coriandar tended to Izuku. Well, I must be off. Izuku's brain, working off of adrenaline, suddenly spurred him into action. All Might, wait, he said as he grabbed onto the hero. Luckily, All Might was able to hear him before taking off. I have something really important to tell you. I think you might be the only one who can help me. So she's an alien? All Might nodded as he stared down at the two teens. He had just finished listening to Izuku explain what he knew, and then Coriandar further provided information on her species. And you can prove this? He asked, not wanting to outright dismiss their claim. But when someone tells you they not only met an alien, but one of them is an alien, it doesn't hurt to see if they aren't pulling your leg. Oh yes, my escape pod. It is still at the house of Midoriya, Coriandar happily bounced. A few minutes later, as All Might had grabbed the two teens and launched himself across town, he watched as Izuku removed a tarp that was covering a metal tube. All Might hummed as he looked at the object. Let me open it for you, Coriandar said as she pushed a button and opened a panel. After All Might poked and prodded at the pod for a moment, he stood up and proudly stated, I have no idea what I'm doing. But, he said, raising a finger, I know someone who might. Do you mind if I take a few photos and get back to you? All Might asked as he pulled out his phone. The next day, there was a knock on the door of the Midoriya's apartment. Inko answered the door and stumbled back in alarm as there were some very intimidating people standing outside. Oh, hello, Mrs. Midoriya, Nizu greeted, drawing her gaze downward from the UA staff. I am Principal Nizu. I am here to discuss things with this Princess Coriandar of Tamarin. He introduced himself and waited to be let in. Inko nervously nodded and stepped back as Nizu, All Might, Recovery Girl, and 13 entered the apartment. After the long conversation, Niza nodded and admitted that it was very likely that Coriandar was an actual alien life form, and that what she informed him of the current galactic neighborhood was both fascinating and alarming. He requested that Princess Coriandar attend UA as a student in the following year, and for the time being come by UA each week to discuss any relevant information. And so for the next month, Izuku barely saw the princess anymore, and while he was happy that she was getting the help she needed, he no longer had a friend to just talk to. "Sweetie, what's the problem?" Inko sat on Izuku's bed. "I don't know. I feel..." Izuku started to try to explain. "Lost?" Inko sighed. "I can see it in your eye when you watch the princess leave to go to UA. Izuku mused. "Like you want to stay with her, but don't want to hold her back." Inko gently rubbed Izuku's back. "Yeah, how do you?" Izuku questioned. Inko chuckled. "How do you think I felt when your father always goes overseas to work? I have to struggle not to go chasing after him each time, even though I know I wouldn't be of any help to him. And I can't because I'm quirkless." Izuku huffed as he buried his face in his pillow. Inko grimaced as she realized that Princess Coriandar was going to go on to do amazing things and her son would be relegated to the sidelines once more. "Yeah. What if I tried?" Izuku asked. "Tried what, sweetie?" Seeking clarification for her confusion. "Tried to get into UA." Izuku sat up. "Then I could be around her, you know, and I wouldn't have to say goodbye." Internally, Inko was squealing in delight that her son had finally been bitten by the love bug, but she was also worried about what it would mean for her son to try and be a hero. "I don't know. How would you do that? I don't have a quirk, and in only a few months wouldn't be able to train myself to be strong enough for whatever they offer. But what if Izuku pondered as he pulled out a special notebook under his mattress. Over the months of contact, Izuku had questioned Coriandar about so many aspects of her life that she knew that he touched on how she draws her powers and what a lot of alien technology is based on. She talked about a species that were distant cousins to her own races, that absorbed solar energy and how they could use it to manipulate gravity, among other things. So Izuku started drawing blueprints. He was no expert mechanic, but it would be like giving a modern-day science book to someone in the 1700s. They may not be able to do everything with it, but it would be a huge head start over anyone else, and Izuku had just that, alien ways of thinking. And it all started with a line and a curve. Chapter 2. He was starting to cut it close. Only a month or so until the entrance exam, and Izuku was struggling to get the device to work. He had the blueprints and the collector ready, but he just couldn't get it to disperse the energy in the proper way. He could fire beams of energy out of the staff, but when it comes to converting that to a field around himself so he could fly, it just didn't contain itself. And to top it all off, he was running low on scrap. Izuku had spent the last few hours digging through a pile of trash near what used to be a beach, and he couldn't find anything of use. With a non-existent budget, he had resorted to using what he could, and a lot of that was garbage. Thankfully, there was plenty of piping and circuit boards he could use, but still it just wasn't enough. Goor! Dang it! Izuku kicked at the rusted frame of a car that had washed up years ago. "Hey!" a voice shouted up to him, making him lose his balance and fall down onto the sand below. "Can you not damage the resources further?" A busty, pink-haired girl wearing goggles glared down at him. "So sorry," Izuku muttered as he rolled over to stand up. "I just got frustrated."
Yeah, no kidding.
"Hatsune, future inventor," she introduced herself. "Izuku Midoriya, future hero, hopefully," Izuku tacked on. "So what brings a future hero to this pile of wonders?" Mei asked as she began to dig through the pile. "I don't want to bother you," Izuku said as he walked back over to his backpack, the staff sticking out. "I was just trying to finish building this." He pointed to the curved brass rod. "Interesting design," Mei hummed as she looked at it, not needing to get closer due to her quirk. "What's it do?" "Absorbs then converts stellar energy, but so far I can only use it to do this," he said as he fired off a blast that practically vaporized a large pile of junk. "It should be able to do more, based on the design I'm using, but I dash." He paused as he turned around, and saw that Hatsum was staring at him strangely. "Is something wrong? Holy crap!" he shouted as the pink-haired girl tackled him to the ground. "Oh my god, this is amazing!" she shouted as she grabbed the rod. "Stellar energy? Never heard of it. But no device could store solar power like that. The batteries alone would need to be the size of a house." But this is smaller, so what makes stellar different than solar? She began to ponder. Where's the blueprints? She demanded. Help, I need an adult. Izuku looked around as he tried to find a way to get this pink teenager off of him. Sure, no need for adults, we need to make babies, Mei declared. Now, give me that sauce boy, she threatened. And that is how Izuku made another friend. Under the threat of something, but she was his friend. His notes that he showed her, however, changed everything. What even is all this? She pondered as she looked over the blueprints. You're either certifiable or a genius the likes humanity has never seen before, she said as she read through them to figure out how he was building this. The energy conversion rate, it defies Newton. You've done something no other scientist has done before, she whispered as she realized what was in her hands. You could reinvent particle physics with this page alone. Well, I just want to be a hero. Izuku blushed as he looked down in the sand. I need to get to UA. That's where I'm going, Hatsum said offhandedly as she continued to look over the notes. Hey Midoriya, I'm going to make you a deal, she offered as she handed him back the blueprint. Yeah, he said nervously. I'll help you finish this, cosmic staff of yours, cool name by the way, and you will allow me to design some of my own things using this information. She pointed at the notes Izuku was holding. Izuku was unsure, as technically the information was alien in origin, so he wasn't sure giving it out to anyone was a good idea, but she wasn't demanding he give it to her, and she did offer to help. What tipped the scale in her favor was something she said next. We have less than a month until the entrance exams. If it's that important to get into that school, you need me, she said as she stuck out her hand. Izuku knew she was right. He needed to go to UA. He had to see Princess Coriandar, and right now might be his only way. Deal, he agreed as he shook her hand. And for the next 3 weeks, the pair were nearly inseparable. But not all of life is seen from one perspective, and not just one person can derive emotion from a situation. For Princess Coriandar, she was miserable. While UA was certainly a nice building, and the people she spoke to were friendly enough, she missed her Izuku dearly. She never got to see him except at the home of the Midoriyas, and even then it was only for a while because UA typically kept her very late. The time she had to see him in class was minuscule because they weren't allowed to chit-the-chat with each other. But she understood why she had to give up what time she had. She knew the Citadel were coming, and she had to give the people of this new planet as much information as she could. She had been very impressed at the abilities that the Earthlings could use and how strong some of them could be, but she was also aware that wouldn't be enough to fend off a full-blown invasion should it happen. The Earthling technology was just too primitive, and they didn't even have a way to contact their galactic sector Green Lantern. So she was trying her best to push them in the right directions. But she was no scientist. She was a princess and not even fully prepared to lead her own people. But the brilliant minds found questions she didn't even know she knew the answers to and was making great progress. So much that she was confident in a few months' time the Earthlings would be able to build a deep space communicator. But still her heart hurt as she longed to see Izuku smile at her and speak to her in his excitable way. The scientists here were simply too clinical for her to attach herself to, which may have been for the best as she never really saw them for longer than a few weeks before new ones were brought in. And it nearly broke her heart when she saw Izuku run off to meet with that pink-haired girl almost every day. He's moving on. I'm a princess, he's not even my species, Coriandar comforted herself. So why doesn't my heart listen? She quietly said as she tried to block out those painful feelings. However, one day the furry white principal of the UA school came to her and made her an offer. If she would take their exam to enter the school, she would be closer to some of the brilliant and talented people who could help her prepare for when she would need to take back her homeworld. She agreed, even though she did not like the idea of being even further from Izuku, but she had asked about him, and the principal had said that was already taken care of. But her lack of understanding of his physiology and the Earth language resulted in her not being able to notice his tone and knowing smile. So sadly she arrived on the day of the test and sat far in the back so as not to let anyone else see her sad face. Because of that, she didn't notice a boy with green hair slink in at the last moment carrying a long brass staff. Izuku was nervous as all hell. He'd sent in his application to UA and gotten a response about use of support gear in the test. They allowed one item to be used, so that those without combat-related quirks could score well if they had a quirk that required it. and Izuku felt that his lack of quirk definitely met that standard. So he carried in his cosmic staff that he and Hatsum had been working on for weeks. So he braced himself when the doors to the city he had been assigned opened. Now would be the true test of his and Hatsum's work. Here goes nothing, Izuku winced as he turned on the staff, hoping that the changes they made wouldn't cause a cascade failure that would at minimum erase him from existence. When he opened his eyes and found himself still alive, he whooped as he then tested the rod's flight capabilities. They worked. Izuku took off like a rocket, flying into the city. He had very little control over the device, however, as he didn't have time to properly test it, but Hatsum did say he should be ready for a kick. So carefully adjusting the staff's tip to aim at a machine, he fired a beam that shot him backwards into a building and through the concrete walls. "Wow!" Izuku yelled as he pulled himself from the hole he made. He looked down and saw the destroyed robot he had shot at. "Awesome, now I just need to do that. I don't know 50 more times," he guessed as he shot off deeper into the facility to try and rack up as many points as he could. "Hey, sir," 13 spoke up. "Doesn't he look familiar?" She pushed a button to put one of the camera's feeds onto his screen. Nizu puzzled for a moment. "Indeed he does." He pushed a few more buttons. "Yes, Izuku Midoriya. Princess Coriandar resides in his home." "Strange," he said out loud. "Records show him to be quirkless, yet he is displaying some abilities that would defy that classification. Could be that weird stick he is holding." Aizawa pointed to the cosmic staff. "Seems to shoot energy or something." "Fascinating," Power Loader said. "I'd love to take a gander at that piece of work. Wonder why he's heading for the hero course and not support if he was able to make that, though." Midnight smiled behind her coffee mug. "I know why. She's got long legs, orange skin, and hair to die for." "He's fighting for her," she concluded. "He's still quirkless," Ken pointed out. If he's able to figure out a way to beat some machines, then he's probably smarter than half the applicants already," Ectoplasm shrugged. "It'd only be fair to give him a shot, and if not, we can just send him to the support course. Seems to have a talent there." Izuku was struggling to keep himself going. Despite the cosmic staff handling most of the heavy lifting, the amount of energy he was expending moving himself, and something he had not accounted for, the energy itself flowing in and around his body was started to tax him greatly. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," he said as his sweat dripped off him in buckets and he landed roughly on the ground. He could hear other students calling out their point totals, and mentally he began to compare it to his own score. "I'm not too far ahead or behind anyone, so I need something to stand out," he grunted as he stood up. He felt the ground shake under his feet, but for a moment didn't differentiate that between his own wobbly legs. When another contestant shoved past him, he looked up to see what they were all running from. "Well, that's a something." He groaned as he lugged the staff down the street, through the crowd. "I hope he's not doing what I think he's doing," Snipe commented as they watched from all the other cities. Every other contestant fleeing the massive machines the principal had unleashed. "He is," All Might smirked. "Now that's plus ultra," he shouted as he flexed. "I don't think I can get this with normal blasts," Izuku pondered as he flipped open a panel on the staff. "Well, go big or get ripped from the space-time continuum," he shrugged as he overloaded the staff's capacitors. "Hope May doesn't kill me for this," he hoped as he took 3 big steps forward and hurled the rapidly overloading staff straight into the machine. The resulting explosion could be seen and heard for miles. In a bright flash of energy, the staff did suffer a cascade failure of energy and began to release it all in a single burst. Fortunately for all the people in the area, the nearest object to take the brunt of it was the massive zero-pointer robot who rapidly melted as the heat rose to temperatures in the thousands of degrees. "Oh, Present Mike shouted as he covered his eyes from the blast. "Little listeners," he called out. "Test is over. Medics are being dispatched to assess injuries," he said quickly so people didn't leave the area. "That was awesome," Power Loader cheered as he spun around in his chair. "Oh, wow. The energy output on that must have been insane," he said excitedly as he ran the footage back and then watched the event in slow motion. "Wow. You can almost see it atomize the surrounding air." "Glad one of us is having fun," Midnight growled as she and the rest of the proctors pulled themselves off the floor. Nizu dusted off his press suit and pressed a button on the control board. Speaker boxes around the surrounding areas crackled to life. Izuku Midoriya, after you have been seen to by Recovery Girl, please head towards the main building. We're going to have a talk about your methods, the voice of the principal said, tone made all the more ominous with how it was coming from every direction. Izuku, Coriandar said in confusion as she flew off the streets. Deku, Bakugo snarled as he realized that his most hated person was also in the school. Midoriya groaned as he slowly picked himself up off the ground. Damn, he swore as he looked at the devastation he caused. Well, at least I got their attention, he said as he slid his leg, beginning to limp towards the exit. He even managed to make it a few feet before he was back on the ground. My Izuku, Coriandar shouted as she slammed into her green-haired target. Why are you here? Is your mother aware what you have been doing? What did you do? She questioned his presence at the exam. Ow, pain. Izuku moaned as Coriandar pressed herself down on him. Please, princess, Izuku pleaded. Right? The earthling body is not as sturdy as other species, Coriandar remembered as she clambered off the boy. No, just, Izuku grunted as he pressed his hands on his back. Sore from the exam. I think I messed up big time, though. I do not know how one makes a mess with time, but I do not think you could not clean it if you had, Coriandar said as she watched Izuku slowly restart his trek out of the area. She floated alongside him as the pair silently passed by other test takers who were whispering about the two. So, Izuku rubbed his sore shoulder. After Recovery Girl had mending the minor fractures and given him some candies, the two were on their way to see the UA staff. Coriandar had ignored the atmosphere that this was supposed to be private, so she was behind Izuku as the teachers were mixed between scowling at the kid that had leveled half a city with his stunt and smirking about how the two were so oblivious. Hee, he chuckled. How's the, weather? You destroyed a 0-pointer, Nizu said flatly. Thankfully no one got hurt in your stunt. Now, why are you here? I, want to be a hero, Izuku half answered the question. Not ready to admit it's because he didn't want to go even a single day without seeing his crush. I see, why UA. You would likely be accepted at one of the other schools with your performance, Nizu countered. UA is the best, Izuku cheekily responded, hoping the praise would end the interrogation before it got awkward. We are, but that doesn't explain everything, the white bear mouse smirked as he watched the teen sweat. What was that device? He asked, moving from the topic so the boy didn't pass out. I call it the cosmic staff, Izuku said. I based it on some of the notes I got from Princess Coriandar. She never told us about stuff like that, Power Loader cut off the boy. Well, she didn't exactly tell me, Izuku quickly said so no one thought that Coriandar was doing anything wrong. I just, figured some of it on my own, Izuku shrugged. I mean, she talks about all these other aliens that her people interacted with, and I sort of put together some bits and pieces there. And built super advanced alien technology out of scrap you found laying about, Midnight dismissed. Izuku silently nodded in shame. Great, Power Loader shouted. If the hero course won't take him I will, the short hero declared. What? Izuku said in confusion. Not so fast. I'd like to have at least one student who's not illogical, Aizawa cut off his colleague. Plus he seems to understand the princess better than I do half the time, so the language barrier won't be so much of an issue. I want him, Midnight giggled. I think the two of them would be fun to play with. Can you not be thirsty for 5 minutes? 13 scolded. Izuku quickly turned to face Coriandar and mouthed his confusion to her. She in turn was also unsure of what to do so could only continue watching the adults bicker uncomfortably. Enough, Nizu shouted, silencing his staff. Midoriya, you will enter Aizawa's 1A class. You will have 3 months to get yourself in shape and prepare another cosmic staff of yours. There's nothing that says you can't rely on your gear for a while until you build your own style. Izuku pumped his fist in excitement that he was being accepted into UA. But Nizu stopped the celebration early. You will be held to a more rigorous standard than the others due to your quirkless nature. If we determine the path of a hero is too difficult, you will be moved into the support course, which will still allow you to attend the school and work alongside the hero students. Sir, so, Izuku rolled his hands as he waited for confirmation. Yes, congratulations young Midoriya and Princess Coriandar. this is your hero academia, All Might proudly said. The two teens embraced in a hug, something that Inko had told Coriandar was a common thing to do among friends when happy. Midnight let out a loud whistle, causing the two to separate from each other, both with deep blushes on their faces, to the amusement of the adults who began to chuckle at the display, before All Might spewed up some blood and changed back into his emaciated form. What the globnak? Coriandar shrieked in fright. Oh my god! Izuku jumped away from the spray. Nizu slapped his face as now he had to explain and make sure both these two would keep All Might's secret. Way to go, Toshi! He groaned as the meeting just added a full hour onto it. Chapter 3. So we are to be Earth heroes now, Coriandar said as she watched Izuku work on building a new staff. Seems so Cori, Izuku said offhandedly. Why would you try so hard if you did not have a quirk? She asked as she floated around his room, lazily bumping into the walls. Izuku paused as he was unsure if he was ready to confess. Heroes don't run, Izuku thought. I didn't want to not see you, he turned. But I am here, and you are able to look at me, Coriandar said in confusion. No, Izuku took a deep breath. I didn't want you to leave, so I tried to get into UA so I could be with you. His cheeks a deep rosy color as he blushed from telling Coriandar the truth. Why would you want to be with me? She asked as her heart thumped in her chest. Because I want to, Izuku said quietly. You're so kind and gentle. You look at everything so differently than other people, things like me. I like looking at you, Izuku, Coriandar said as she landed on the floor. When you would go off with the pink-haired girl, it hurt right here. She grabbed Izuku's hand and placed it on her chest where her heart was. For Izuku this meant he had a handful of Coriandar's breast, and now his face was red as his blood rushed quickly from one end to the other, and he was on the verge of passing out. I missed you dearly and wished to see you every day, Coriandar said as she wiped a tear from her eye. Now that you are going to the school, I will not feel this way, she said happily as she smiled. Izuku's body had been reacting in the way any teenager's body would once he was touching boob, but his emotions took over once he saw the princess's face. Coriandar, will you be my girlfriend? He asked. I am confused, Coriandar replied. Am I not a girl and your friend already? Well, a girlfriend is something special. It means we D-date and K-kiss, Izuku stammered. Oh, like, Coriandar leaned forward as her breathing slowed down and she connected her lips to Izuku's. For a long while, neither teen broke the embrace. That? She asked as she removed her lips from Izuku's, a strand of spit connecting their mouths. Yeah, Izuku gasped out.
Okay, Coriandar nodded slowly.
I like kissing you, she said as she leaned in for more. So are you two ready for your first official day at UA? Inko asked as she saw her two babies standing in their uniforms at the door, holding hands. Coriandar nodded happily, her enjoyment of going to the school much higher since she would be going with Izuku, her boyfriend. She thought it was cute that the Earthlings had names for different stages of the relationship, instead of just saying he was her betrothed. Izuku, on the other hand, looked a bit nervous as he rested the new and improved cosmic staff on his shoulder. Yeah, it's going to be great, he said, mostly to reassure himself that he could do this. Tell me all about your day when you get back. She waved her goodbyes to the teens. I just hope it's not too crazy, Izuku said as he recalled how crazy things had gotten at his middle school when it was announced that not just one but 3 students from their school was going to be attending UA, something they said might be a record. The student body at Aldera was cheering loudly as the principal read from the letter sent to his school by Nizu. And the 3 students are, the principal started to announce, Katsuki Bakugo. To the surprise of no one, as he had been an expected win. Coriandar was the next name called, which to some was weird as they didn't know the orange-skinned girl all that well, but it was a rumor that she wasn't afraid of Bakugo, so she had to be tough was the general consensus. And Izuku Midoriya, the principal faltered as he said the name of his school's only quirkless student. What? The assembled classmates shouted as no one had expected to hear that name called. Aha! Izuku tugged at his collar as he saw the entire class glare at him. He had to have cheated. There's no way he got in. It has to be a mistake. Is it some pity placement he got? While Izuku was used to whispered conversations about himself, These dug deeper as he legitimately succeeded at something in his life, and nobody believed it. However, he was not the one most enraged by the lack of belief in his achievements. "Don't," whispered Izuku as he quickly took Coriander's hand to stop her from yelling. "It's not worth it. We only have a few days left, and then we don't have to worry about this anymore." "Fine," Coriander sighed as she folded her arms, still glaring at the other students in attendance. "But I require a kiss, if you are going to tell me to do things." She puffed out her cheeks in annoyance. Here," Izuku gasped. "Yes, I want one now," Coriander demanded. "Oh, okay," Izuku nervously said as he leaned towards her. "Hey, look, everyone!" Someone pointed and laughed, drawing everyone's attention. "Izuku's trying to kiss the only girl in the school who doesn't think he's repulsive. I bet she throws up," someone else snickered. Getting frustrated, Coriander opened her mouth to start berating her classmates when Izuku latched his lips onto hers and deeply kissed her, shoving his tongue in her own mouth to wrestle for dominance. "Dude," a student said as they watched Coriander lose the sudden battle and roll her eyes into the back of her head as she fell into the passions of Izuku's kiss. As soon as Izuku broke the kiss, Coriander's eyes rolled back down. "Aheh," Izuku chuckled. "A bit much?" he nervously asked. "More," Coriander said loudly as she slammed Izuku into the wall and began to make out with him, not caring one bit at who could see or that the principal was shouting at her to stop. After 2 minutes of denying Izuku oxygen, Coriander finally let his head go. Izuku slumped to the ground where he had to draw in deep breaths to keep himself from passing out. "We need to train how long you hold your breath, boyfriend," Coriander casually said. "You will need it for later." Slowly, Izuku nodded his head. "We can do that, yeah," he said breathlessly. After that kiss, Izuku didn't pay any of his tormentors mind. So the last few days at Aldera were his most peaceful because he was living his dream, and he had this amazing orange-skinned alien to thank for it all. 1A, is it over here?" Izuku asked. "Yes, it is down this hallway," Coriander said as she navigated the large campus, having been here many times prior. Izuku nervously took Coriander's hand and entered the room with her, only to see Katsuki arguing with another student. "Hello, new friends," Coriander loudly greeted the class, who looked at her in confusion. She tugged Izuku behind her as she found to open seats next to each other, seating herself and Izuku in them. "Oh good," Aizawa said as he entered the room. "Only 2 students out of their seats," he said as he eyed Ida and Bakugo arguing with each other about how to behave. "The rest of you, put on these uniforms and head out to the field, except you, Midoriya," Aizawa instructed the class. As the class began to file out, they were confused why one of their classmates was required to remain behind, but didn't know him well enough to comment on it. Or in the case of Coriander, knew what they might be talking about, and Bakugo fuming as he didn't have a chance to yell at Deku yet today. "So, this is the new cosmic staff?" he asked as he eyed the piece of tech in his hands. "Yup, a few modifications and maybe a couple of design changes, and it's better than ever," Izuku smiled. "You can't use it today," Aizawa said as he started to head out the door. "The test is to see what you can do, not your staff." Izuku started to protest before he slumped over in defeat, knowing a lost cause when he saw one. "Yes, sir," he said as he followed behind his teacher and now was the last one out onto the field after everyone else had been patiently waiting, or in the case of Bakugo, angrily tapping his foot. "Finally, the quirkless loser gets here so we can start," Bakugo shouted as he stomped forward and took the ball from Aizawa. "I need to explain the lesson to Midoriya," Aizawa started to say. "That shit's only redeeming quality is he's not a moron. He can figure this out," Bakugo said as he hurled the ball with his quirk. Coriander clenched her hands into fists, angry that Bakugo is continuing to make fun of Izuku for not having a quirk. "Please do not insult my Izuku. He is a nice boy and doesn't deserve it." "Your Izuku?" Mina questioned the orange-skinned girl who she was hoping to become good friends with. "Yes, but Izuku is not just my Izuku. I have also," Coriander started to say before Izuku covered her mouth. "Maybe now's not the time to explain how our relationship works, Cori," Izuku nervously chuckled, hoping to avoid having everyone look at him strange for the next 3 years or however long he remained at UA. "Fine," Coriander said as she puffed up her cheeks. But if you are going to be putting your hand on my mouth, then what can I put on your mouth? Mineta, in his infinite perversion, was currently short-circuiting in line as he listened to the conversation his two classmates were having. As the class moved to the next event, a simple 50-meter dash, Izuku adjusted his waistband. Maybe it wasn't entirely fair, but Eraserhead did only say he couldn't use the cosmic staff. As Izuku lined up next to Katsuki, who was loving that he got to show up Deku in front of the entire class, he didn't notice that Izuku had pressed a button and a faint glow appeared over his skin. "Begin," Aizawa called out as he rubbed his eyes, unsure if it was just a trick of the light or if Midoriya was actually glowing. Surprising everyone, Izuku managed to finish slightly ahead of Bakugo, due to the slight deceleration of his explosions each time he fired them, and the lull in between allowed Izuku's consistent pace to pass him by. "HRN," Aizawa grunted as he marked down the two students' times. "Faster than he looks," he said dismissively as he decided to wait to see what happened. The various events continued on as Izuku did better and better with the use of his cosmic converter belt. He was so impressed with how it worked and how happy he was that Mei was able to help him complete it, even if the end result was a not insignificant change to his life. Izuku put the finishing touches on the second cosmic staff. This time, after getting to use it firsthand, he realized that he would have some issues when it came to control, and with only a few more days until the new year to start at UA, he knew he needed some extra input. Sending a text to Mei asking if she was free to come to his apartment to help him with a project. It was seconds later when she eagerly replied, stating she would be there in less than an hour. Nodding as he finished reading the text, he decided to grab a shower and start making some snacks so that he and Mei could have something to eat while they worked in case they forgot to eat. He heard a knocking at the door and happily went to go and greet his guest. "Hello, Mei." Izuku smiled at the excited mechanic. "Hello, Midoriya." Mei smirked as she walked past him carrying her large gearbox. "So what's the plan for today?" "Well, I realized that after the entrance exam, which I passed by the way," Izuku said proudly. "Oh, congratulations." Mei smiled as she was happy for her friend. "But anyway," he said as he shut the door, "after the entrance exam I thought back on it and realized I didn't have nearly as much control over the cosmic staff as I would have liked. So what's the plan? Lower the power? Build some kind of bracing system?" Mei inquired as she followed him to his room. "Human enhancement," Izuku answered as he searched through his desk for something. "I can't just make the staff weaker or rely on a huge suit. That's going to ruin everything. But if I can make myself better, then I could handle it so much easier." "How?" Mei questioned. "You can't be talking about chemicals or some kind of augmentation surgery, are you?" "No. See, I had this idea," he continued as he pulled out a notebook from a drawer. "I think I can design a belt that will absorb stellar energy and then convert it a bio-aura for myself that would reinforce my body." "You absolute mad lad," Mei gasped as she snatched the notebook. "Where do you get these ideas?" she asked. "Well," he scratched his cheek, unsure how to tell her he got the idea from the stories about Kryptonians under yellow sun radiation. "Izuku," Coriandar called out. "I found your plate of finger foods," she said as she pushed open the door. "I do not know why they are called that. They are not made of fingers, nor do they look like them," she trailed off as she saw the pink-haired girl. "Oh hey, Mei had some," Mei greeted as she extended a hand. Coriandar stood for a while before setting the platter onto Izuku's desk. She walked past Mei, who looked a bit nervous at potentially offending the girl. "Cori?" Izuku questioned before the princess lifted him off the floor and pinned him to the wall and stuck her tongue on his mouth. For a full minute, Mei watched this strange new girl make out with her friend. Finally, she broke the kiss and set Izuku back down, but also pulled him into her body. "This is my Izuku. Do not be trying to take him from me," Coriandar warned as she carefully let him go and then left the room. "What was that?" Mei said to a still lightheaded Izuku. "My girlfriend," Izuku answered as regained his bearings. "She's never done that before, though." "A bit protective, isn't she?" Mei whispered. "She means well," Izuku said. "She got worried when I would go off with you to work on the cosmic staff." "Oh," Mei said as she realized how that might have looked, with her boyfriend always running off with a strange girl. "I mean, you told her that you were doing this to get into UA, right?" "Well, not exactly at all," he responded. I wanted it to be a surprise that I got in with her. Wow, and I thought I was a bit of an airhead, May said as she headed towards the door. I'll be right back. Stay here, she ordered. Hey, May called out to a pouting Coriandar. Can I talk to you for a moment? You already are, so I do not see a point in you stopping now, Coriandar said as she flipped through the channels. I'm not trying to take your boyfriend. I mean, sure, he's the nicest guy I've met and doesn't mind when I get a bit hands-on, May chuckled. But I wouldn't ever try to be the other woman. But you are another woman, Coriandar said in confusion. Unless you can turn into a man. No, I mean, I don't want to be some side chick, May corrected. You are making less sense. I don't want to break you up, May groaned. I do not want to break anyone either. Why is this so hard? May sighed. Look, Izuku is cute and smart, good with his hands and helps me stay focused, and this is now a confession, May realized. Coriandar slowly rose from her seat. You love my Izuku. No, yes, maybe. May panicked as she was not ready to confront her feelings for a boy at this time. But before she could do anything, Coriandar had picked her up and carried her back to Izuku's room. The entire time the pink-haired girl was struggling to escape the alien's strong grasp. Izuku, she is in love with you, Coriandar stated firmly. Now kiss her, she demanded. What? Izuku and May exclaimed at the same time. Yes, you have told me that love is important, Coriandar said. But I love you, Cori. Izuku tried to find an excuse to get out of the situation. I mean, he furiously blushed as he hadn't said those words to Coriandar before. Do you also love her? Coriandar asked as she turned an equally blushing May around to face Izuku. Yes, no, maybe, Izuku quickly answered. That is good. She feels the same way, so now you two must kiss, Coriandar said as she pushed May towards Izuku. May stammered as she looked to the floor. Hi, she chuckled. I do, like you, May. Izuku rubbed his arm. So do I. This is weird, May whined. Izuku laughed for a moment. Tell me about it, Izuku agreed. Do hurry, my soaps will be on soon, Coriandar said as she wanted to return to watch the commercials, something Inko has tried a few times to fruitlessly explain, which only caused her realize how silly it was for modern advertising to tell these stories in between other shows, resulting in Coriandar to assume the commercials were the shows. Not helping the fact was that when explaining a soap opera to the young princess, an actual soap commercial came on during the break. Finally, Izuku worked up the courage to kiss May. Albeit the kiss was not one of deep passion like Coriandar's were, but it still conveyed his emotions to her. Slowly, May started to return the kiss as she pulled Izuku closer to her. Yay! Now we can all be girlfriends, Coriandar happily said. That's not how that works, Izuku stammered as he looked at the two girls he now seemed to be in a complicated relationship with. But it's the thought that counts, he shrugged. So while kissing is nice, May coughed. Something I really want to do more of. Should we get to work? She questioned as she tried to not expose her blushing face. Yeah, in a couple hours we could have a prototype ready to test, Izuku happily said. Fantastic, Coriandar said. Then after all of that, we can eat and sleep together. She clapped her hands together quickly before exiting the room. Does she mean sleep or sleep? May air quoted. Sometimes, I'm not sure. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Do I need to start kissing her too? May asked, having never been in a relationship before, nor one that was this different than what she was expecting. I mean, you can, Izuku chuckled as he tugged at his collar. I don't want it to seem like I'm the only one allowed to kiss people. Cool, because, May responded. She wears really high-cut shirts. She looked at the doorway, the place that Coriandar stood. Do you, have a muscle fetish? Izuku questioned. Maybe, May shrugged. What I do know is that her stomach is very distracting, May answered. Note to self, Izuku mused. Get very fit for May, he mentally added to his list of things to do. As Midoriya stopped smiling as he remembered the day he made the belt, he was handed the ball by Coriandar as she floated in line next to him. While Izuku had surprised himself with how effective his new invention was at helping him keep up with students who had quirks, the class was astonished by Coriandar's capabilities. Her flight easily won her the long jump, her strength and stamina placing her very high in the rankings if not outright winning them. Her balance on the side steps left something to be desired, but outside Mineta, no one really had abilities that benefited them in that task. So Izuku calmly stepped into the circle to throw his baseball when Aizawa shouted at him. "Hey, no support gear. You only said no staff," Izuku countered. "And is the staff giving you this strength?" Aizawa questioned, not really being much of a gearhead himself. He just knew the cosmic staff greatly enhanced Midoriya's capabilities. To what extent he did not know. "No, that would be this," Izuku said as he raised his shirt up. Aizawa groaned as he realized he had been beaten, as he did only say no to Izuku using his staff. Something he couldn't then go back and tell him to redo all the tests without the belt. Well, he could, but he really didn't want to do that. "Fine, just throw the damn ball." "Wait, he's been cheating this whole time?" Kirishima questioned. "Not manly." "Technically not cheating," Izuku replied as he threw the ball into the distance. "He never said you couldn't use things to help you with the tasks, as we saw her do just that," he said, pointing to Momo, who had been making objects to complete the tasks. "I just brought one with me is all." "If you were so good at building stuff, why are you not in the support course?" Mina asked. "I want to be a hero, not an engineer," Izuku shrugged at his simple answer. "So Midoriya, what does this gadget do?" Aizawa asked, hoping it wouldn't explode. "Well, it like the cosmic staff converts stellar energy, in a smaller amount, into a bio-aura that enhances my strength, speed, and durability." Izuku began to list off the benefits. "With this, I should have an easier time controlling the staff's power output, which I also increased since the exam." "Does it explode?" Aizawa asked. "Would I be wearing it if it did?" Izuku asked incredulously. "Do you want me to answer that honestly?" Aizawa quirked an eyebrow. "Fair enough," Izuku sighed, as the prototype did in fact, slightly, only a small amount, explode the first time they used it. "Well, almost all of you did well," Aizawa said as he presented the scores of the tests to the class, showing Mineta at the bottom of the ranks. "Unfortunately, one of you must go home," Aizawa said firmly. "Then send Deka home," Bakugo interrupted. "At least Shrimpy here." He jabbed his finger at the saddened purple-haired boy who expected himself to be going home after only getting a single good score the entire test. "Has a quirk, so he might not be completely useless." "God, what a prick," Jairu scoffed as she turned away from the loud boy. "He has a point," Kaminari responded. "I mean, if he's only here because of tools," he said, pointing to Izuku. "Wouldn't anyone else with those same tools just do better?" "I don't know," Momo mused. "I've never heard of stellar energy before, and those tools look custom-made." "Then let's put it to a vote. We live in a democracy, of sorts," Aizawa shrugged. "These will be your classmates potentially for the next 3 years. You should have some say in who they are." He grinned maliciously at his students who flinched away from his smile. "Raise your hand if you think Midoriya," he gestured to Izuku to make sure everyone knew who they were voting for, "should remain in the hero course. You can only vote once," Aizawa added on as he expected a few students to double vote so they didn't feel bad. Aizawa hummed as he knew at least one person would vote for Izuku, being the Tamaranian princess. However, he had managed to garner quite a few other votes from the class, be it due to his score being higher, impressed by his ingenuity, or not wanting to be seen as discriminating against a quirkless person. "That looks like more than half," he smirked. Mineta shook nervously, as he was pretty sure that was more than 10 votes in favor of Midoriya. Now he was certain he would be going home today. "But in the interest of fairness, raise your hand if you think Mineta should stay." Mineta closed his eyes and didn't even want to see the outcome of the vote. "Oh, really interesting. Why did you raise your hand, Midoriya? Do you want to go home?" Aizawa said with a tone of amusement. Mineta quickly opened his eyes and looked at the student who he was in a way competing against, seemingly throwing away his chance. "Because I don't think he should go. He didn't do anything wrong and we don't punish people for that," Izuku said firmly. "All of us here want to be heroes and I think everyone deserves the chance to be one." Aizawa hummed as Mineta began to cross his fingers hopefully that maybe Midoriya's words would save him from expulsion. "Why don't I just expel the both of you then? Save me a headache." The sadistic teacher laughed at his joke. "That is not very nice." "You are being most unkind," Coriandar shouted, not enjoying the pressure being put on Izuku at the moment. Just having a little fun, princess. Aizawa raised his hands defensively. They can both stay, but they're first on the chopping block if they can't keep up, he warned as he started to walk away. Class dismissed. The class heaved a sigh of relief when the teacher departed. Oh man, he's so intense, Zero wheezed. What was that about, princess? Does he know you? Mina inquired of the other girl. Oh, that is because I am a princess, Coriandar said. What? Mina exclaimed as she had not been expecting that answer, startling the rest of the class. Yes, I am from Tamarin, Coriandar started to explain to the other girl. Cori, maybe now's not the best time, Izuku mumbled as he quickly tried to get her to not reveal that she was an alien to the entire class. I've never heard of Tamarin before, Momo questioned. I would expect not. It is not from your planet, Coriandar replied. So you mean to tell us you're an alien? Ida asked. Correct. Tamarin is in the star system Vega. It is relatively close, as we are only 14 galactic sectors away. Cori started to explain before the class busted up laughing. Oh man, that is exactly what I needed after this class. Kaminari doubled over in a fit. Aliens, oh man, that is amazing. Did you make that up just now, or have you been preparing that for a while? Izuku said quickly as he started to drag a confused alien princess away from the class. Cori's great with jokes. She always keeps the mood light, he chuckled nervously. Well, it's been great. See you all tomorrow, he said as he pushed her into the main building. I do not like being hurried away, Izuku, Cori puffed up indignantly. Sorry, it's just, you can't go around telling everyone that you are an alien. Izuku quietly hissed as he walked through the empty halls to the locker rooms. But it is the truth, Coriandar said in confusion. I know that, you know that, the teachers know that, the other people. If they knew that, I don't know how they would react. So maybe don't tell people until we are sure about that last part, Izuku said as he stepped into the boys' locker room. Get changed so we can go see Mom later and tell her how our day went. Okay, Coriandar said sullenly, not comfortable with having to lie about what she was. But she changed back into her school uniform nonetheless. Sir, should we be concerned about this young boy's capabilities and the connection he has with the princess? Aizawa asked as he sipped his juice. Nizu spun around in his chair with a smile on his face. Nope, eventually others will learn about Ms. Coriandar, and there's nothing we can do about it. As for them dating, Nizu shrugged. If it progresses far enough, we may learn if human and Tamaranian DNA is compatible. Sir, that's vulgar, Aizawa scoffed. Maybe, but it's still important to know, Nizu replied as he spun his chair even faster. Chapter 4. I am here, All Might proudly announced as he entered the classroom. He was pumped for his first day of teaching the UA class. He had it all planned out. There would be suspense, drama, and action, just like how he used to be trained, and hopefully with less curling up in a ball on the floor and crying. Izuku was excited. For the first time, he'd be able to really show off what his tech can do. He had readjusted the Cosmic Converter Belt after seeing the results of a field test the previous day, and now he would be given a chance to test them all out in real combat scenarios. Dude, nice studs, Kirishima chuckled as he saw Izuku's star-spangled uniform. He blushed a bit at the teasing, but it wasn't like he got to decide how his costume looked. Not entirely, at least. He'd wanted a full spandex suit, one inspired by All Might's old costumes, so it had a mix of red, white, and blue, some stripes and a big star on the chest, but then May and Coriandar got a hold of his design before he could send it in. He suspected that May had a muscle fetish, and it turned out that he had been correct after seeing the modifications they had both made. The leggings were cut up higher on the thigh, exposing his calf muscles, and his top had been shortened to show off his growing abdominal muscles. He felt a little exposed at displaying so much of his body. It was less than if he would go swimming, but that he was dressed and only covering up so much, it was also different. Not everyone has the courage needed to show off so much. Aoyama smiled as he twirled his cape around, his costume having more than everyone else in terms of colors, fabric, and pieces. It was supposed to cover more, Izuku quietly said as he buckled on his belt and picked up his staff, hoping that he could get through the day without dying of embarrassment. What bravery, young Midoriya! All Might proudly said as he saw the green-haired student come out with the other guys, his costume far more revealing than most of the others. You know, a little more exercise, and you'll really be showing off. thinking that was the idea Izuku had been going for. Can you not? Izuku pleaded, as he didn't need to be getting teased by his teacher too. Izuku, Coriandar happily said as she swooped down next to Izuku. The moment she saw him standing out on the field, she couldn't restrain herself for a moment longer. Ooh, you look so good in this, she purred as she started to rub his exposed stomach. Using his incredible willpower, he kept himself from reacting to her touch, but that didn't stop him from seeing her own outfit. Do you like it? Coriandar giggled as she twirled around for him. It is a traditional battle uniform. Izuku's brain ceased functioning as he took in the sight of his hot alien girlfriend. He's seen her tight stomach before, but that was still attractive, and as a wise man once said, the belly is the center of a woman's hotness in between the two places of glory. But her shorts, that could barely be counted as shorts as they stopped just below the panty line. The tall purple boots that rode up her thighs, the way the top supported her ample bosom, it was enough to make a man weep for joy seeing such beauty.
Yes,
Izuku said, having difficulty controlling his volume. I mean, yeah, you look amazing. That's good. I'd hate to look silly, she giggled as she twirled around in the air, showing off every side of her. I love the hero course, Mineta shouted from the back as he got a look at the female students in their tight-fitting costumes. I do too, random student, All Might proudly said as he started to explain the day's lesson before sending teams off to battle each other. So, Mina rocked back and forth on the balls of her feet. She had followed Midoriya's plan of guarding the device on the middle floor, in an out-of-the-way room, since most every other team was putting the device on the top floor expecting the distance to give them the biggest time bonus, but he figured that the teams having to double back or splitting up to try and find the device would be more beneficial for them. You and Coriandar, huh? Inquiring into the strange girl in the class she was hoping to get to know. Izuku rubbed the back of his head, letting out a chuckle. Yeah, honestly, I'm a really lucky guy. And he believed that because he figured the odds that he'd have met someone like Coriandar after her harrowing escape into space was astronomical, pun intended. But that she liked him, parts of him still believed to be unreal. She's pretty cool, super friendly. Mina smirked as the girl was one of the nicest people she'd ever met. A bit of an airhead like herself, but that wasn't too bad. At least she didn't have a bad attitude. She's just as lucky to have you too, Mina winked. Me? Really? Izuku replied as he was surprised that Mina saw their relationship that way. You're smart, Mina pointed towards the staff and belt as evidence. Plus you're a nice guy. Not many people would have stood up for someone else like you did yesterday. You could have kept your mouth shut, and that short purple kid would have been sent home with you guaranteed to stay, but you didn't think it was fair to do that to him. Well, it just seemed like the right thing to do, Izuku shrugged. Plus you're really rocking that costume, Mina chuckled as she poked Izuku's stomach. Izuku squirmed at the touch and took a step away, blushing. Yeah, well, Hatsum and Cory got a hold of my design sheet before I could submit it, hoping that would excuse why he felt so exposed. Hatsum? Mina tilted her head. She's my, second girlfriend. Izuku gulped as he hoped this information wouldn't cause a fight, since it could easily be seen as him being a two-timing sleazeball. Second girlfriend? Mina repeated slowly because what Izuku said didn't make sense to her. It was Cory's idea and we're making it work, Izuku hurriedly added, not wanting to seem like a sleaze for dating two girls at once. Back in the tent, the class was listening in on the conversation. He's dating two girls at once? Ida repeated as he was unsure what he had heard. No, Coriandar shook her head. Hatsum, Izuku and I are dating, she corrected. It is love. It is easier this way than to try and pretend the feelings do not exist. Wow, that's... Jairu whistled in appreciation for their approach to dating. Surprisingly mature. Not sure how effective it is. He has a harem, Mineta whined as he bit his lip hard enough to draw blood. He's a god. The puny purple pervert's respect for his fellow classmate rose to unheard of levels. All Might loved gossip as much as the next person and wanted to get more juicy details that he could then share with other teachers, but he also knew he had to get started on the lesson because he was on a time limit. We can speculate on young Midoriya's love life later. For now, though, let the battle begin. All Might said happily into the microphone with a horn signaling the beginning of the match. Oh yeah, Kirishima shouted in glee at the chance to go in and battle. Mina was his friend growing up, so he knew she would be up for a good brawl, and this new kid seemed interesting. Shouldn't we come up with a plan? Hagakure questioned as her teammate just ran into the building. We don't know anything about their quirks. Mina can make acid, and that other kid is strong, Kirishima responded as he tore up the steps to get to the top floor. That's all I need to know. See, told you they'd pass us by, Izuku commented once he heard Kirishima stomping around above them. Now we just wait for them to start coming back down. The pink-skinned girl was a tad upset that her teammate's plan had worked. He had asked her what her impressions of their opponents were, which surprised her because she expected him to take total charge of the situation and not include her at all. So she was glad to provide what she knew of Kirishima, which put a smile on his face, saying that he can work with that. You know, he's not dumb, Mina pouted, wanting to defend her friend from possibly being insulted. I never said he was, but he's the type to run in without thinking of a plan. Izuku shrugged and readied the staff because he could hear footsteps coming down the hall. I can respect that, but it also allows for me to do this. A burst of cosmic energy erupted out of the curved tip of the cosmic staff, and Kirishima, having expected an attack the moment he stepped through the doorway, braced himself for the hit. What he wasn't expecting was just how much power the equipment could put out, so he was surprised to feel the burn through his hardened skin as he was rocketed through an outer wall of the building to fall a few stories to the ground. You okay? Izuku shouted down at him through the new hole in the wall. Kirishima lifted up an arm and extended a thumb. That thing has a kick to it. Speaking back upwards as he picked himself off the ground and brushed the rubble from his body. Sorry, I try to tone down the power since it's just a test. I can go easier if you like, Izuku offered since he didn't want to go too crazy with the test. Nah, it's cool. Wait right there for me, Kirishima requested as he ran back into the building. Aoki's that stings, Hagakure squeaked and jumped back from the puddle, just inside the doorway of the room with the bomb. She was hoping to sneak past Midoriya since she had no way to defend against that support gear's laser beams, but she hadn't expected that the floor would be covered in acid. Don't worry, Mina turned and grinned at the invisible girl. It's not super strong, and at most it's just going to itch for a while. Whitish goop formed in her palms, and she began to fling it around herself to try and catch the invisible girl. Knowing that she had no protective clothing on, Mina needed to keep the acid at a low level so as to only cause itching. But still getting splashed with it would give multiple benefits, as she would be better able to see the invisible girl if she was all covered in the visible liquid. With the element of surprise gone, Hagakure could only do so much to dodge the acid, but with Mina throwing it all over the place, she was only able to avoid the larger blobs, but still getting hit with drops. Oh, that feels so bad, Hagakure whined, feeling the intense need to scratch herself, but if she stopped she'd just get hit with more. I bet you really want to stop and take care of that itch something fierce, don't you? Mina cackled evilly while getting more accurate with her shots as Hagakure became easier to track around the room. A few big balls of acid managed to splash all over her chest and back, causing the girl to squeal in frustration. We should probably turn this off. Ida coughed loudly now that Hagakure was easy to see on the high-definition cameras. And considering her lack of clothing and the cold liquid dousing her, certain parts of her anatomy were now prominently displayed for the entire class. All Might raised a hand to end the lesson when out of nowhere a screech of lewd frustration rang out. "No, we can't stop the lesson now. They have so much they still need to learn. We have to see it through to the end," Mineta cried out while throwing himself at All Might. This isn't really appropriate though, All Might faltered because as a first-time teacher he didn't really know when it was an appropriate time to end a class, which on the monitors Toru covered in viscous liquid, and with her breasts bouncing around for everyone to see, that moment had long since passed. I give, Hagakure squealed and ran out of the room to avoid any more direct fire while frantically scratching all over herself. Unfortunately, she wasn't paying attention to where she was going, and she ended up crashing into Midoriya. Please help me. I'm so itchy. The not-quite-invisible girl begged as she was too busy scratching to see that her body was pressing down on his own. Izuku froze under the weight of a person on him. A person that was also a very naked girl and who was grinding on his flesh to find relief for the itching sensation she was subjected to. Izuku stammered and looked at his opponent, who instead of doing anything helpful was just laughing at him. Please, Toru begged. I need your hands. Slowly raising his hands up around her, he ran his nails down her back, which caused her to arch up at the pleasant feeling of that itch being taken care of. Only in doing so her acid-covered breasts were now shoved directly into Izuku's face. And we are done, All Might said finally now that one of the cameras that faced that hallway was giving the entire class an eyeful of their classmate's backside while she straddled young Midoriya. So he turned off the cameras and called an end to the battle.
Mina.
Izuku shouted, foregoing all politeness in the situation, while he kept scratching Toru, who was moving around on top of him, which he was finding very hard to not react to. How do we get the acid off her? Just some water will be fine, Mina snorted out while watching the hilarious scene in front of her. Hear that, Toru? We can get you rinsed off and you'll be fine, Izuku said while trying to sit up only to be pushed down. No, keep scratching, Toru ordered while flipping over and wiggling her back against Izuku's chest, grabbing his hands in the process and putting them on her stomach. Izuku was now very worried he would end up putting his hands somewhere that would get him in trouble, but he couldn't just leave the girl like this. Please, you two go get water and come back here. Hurry, Izuku said with concern in his eyes that this was a bad situation he was in. The two knuckleheads just started to walk off with their snickers, filling the hallway, leaving Izuku alone with Toru, who was just moaning on top of him. What felt like ages finally was near its end when Cory flew down the hall carrying a bucket of water that she filled up and dumped all over the two. So did you have fun with my boyfriend? She asked with a smile. What do you? Toru wondered what the orange-skinned girl meant, but then she realized she was on top of something and looked down to see she was soaking wet and in the lap of her classmate. A classmate she tackled to the floor just to try and find relief. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. A classmate she had basically forced to molest her, whose hands had been on every part of her body. Somehow being invisible didn't prevent herself from blushing. It's fine, Izuku said deliriously while sitting up. Just completely ruined my shorts from all the, movement. Embarrassingly admitting that at some point the motions of her body had gotten him to blow. It's not fine, Midoriya, Oh God, I'm so awful. Toru wept thinking about how terrible a person she was for what she did just to find relief from itching. She felt so ashamed at what she had done. No, really, it's fine. I can't say I didn't enjoy it, nervously chuckling. You have a very beautiful body. I believe it is my turn to feel how good your hands are now, Cory said as she seated herself onto her boyfriend, not letting Toru get off Izuku's lap, trapping her between the two bodies. Why, Cory? Izuku shouted at the sudden, surprising feeling from the weight of two people pushing him back to the floor. You are right. She has a beautiful body, Cory stated, feeling the invisible girl's breasts pressing against her own. Cory! Izuku shouted louder this time. You can't just do stuff like this. Why not? Cory pouted. You are my boyfriend. That means Hatsum and I are allowed to touch you whenever we want. But Hagakure isn't dating us. Izuku tried to reason with his girlfriend, who was in fact not more lewd than Hatsum. The pink-haired girl was apparently just better at hiding it. We can change that, Cory said while grabbing onto Hagakure. How about it? We will. The invisible girl gulped nervously. After all but having sex with the boy underneath her, she was more than a bit flustered, and now that she wasn't focused on scratching, she was feeling that all the manhandling of her body had gotten her worked up. Ahem. All Might loudly cleared his throat from down the hall. If you do not mind, we have a lesson to get to. Oh, thank you, God. Izuku managed to wheeze out from having adult supervision, which should prevent anything more untoward's happening. Fine, we can talk about this later, Cory warned as she floated off the two, who quickly separated from each other. Knowing that she had to go join her partner for her fight against Bakugo, she was left Izuku alone with Hagakure. That was, Izuku rubbed his arm, while trying to find anything to say to the invisible girl. Yeah, we certainly did. Cory was probably kidding about talking later, Izuku said in an attempt to assuage the other girl's fears. Oh, Hagakure said a bit dejectedly, because that was actually something she was thinking would be an interesting conversation. I mean, yeah, faking a laugh. Probably. Not like she was serious about anything like that, With, someone like me? No, not like that, Izuka quickly interrupted. It's just she doesn't really get things easily. But it's nothing against you. You're amazing. We barely know each other, right? Hagakure nodded, her wet face being the only thing that Izuku could see, but he was sure that some of the water coming down was not from being splashed. Maybe we get to know each other more. How about we start there? I'm Izuka Midoriya. Call me Izuku, offering her hand in friendship to the invisible girl. Tura Hagakure. Call me Turu, giving that hand a shake before leaning forward and pecking him on the cheek. That's for helping me earlier when you really didn't have to. Touching his face at the faint lingering feeling her lips left, Izuku smiled. What kind of hero would I be if I left someone who was crying out for help? Not a good one, I guess, but it does make you really good boyfriend material. Turu giggled happily, thinking that things weren't so completely messed up. We should get back to the tent, though. Everyone is probably waiting for us to start. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, Turu sighed and leaned into Izuku for the walk back. You know, your body is pretty impressive too, Starboy. Letting out a relieved chuckle that this awkward situation would hopefully be behind him, Izuku found a seat next to Coriandar for the rest of the matches until she had her chance to go out, coincidentally against Bakugo. Cory, I'm not normally one to promote violence, Buet. Izuku rolled his eyes while he glanced over at Bakugo. Kick his ass. Okay, I will plant my foot on his behind with much vigor. Cory proudly declared her intent to fight against the boy who tormented her Izuku so much. Author's notes. It's been a while, and I've been lazy. I've been lazy. Next chapter will go over Starfire's battle, and it will be explosive.